Yo, what it do, guys, and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video we'll be taking a closer look at Jade, because as of the Tech Raw Encore update that happened with Warframe, every and any Warframe that has an Exalted Weapon now also can go and get an Arcane slot for their Exalted Weapons. So that means we're going to relook and update Jade for 2025. So this is going to be a glory build, it's going to be a run and gun, fly-in build and whatnot, but with a little bit of an extra twist because there's some interesting things that you can go and do with glory due to these new Arcane slots. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump straight into the build, starting things off with glory. So glory here, what we're going to be doing, the main look of this build is to go ahead and look into secondary cucumber, as I like to go and call it. Basically what it's going to go and do is that every time I go and proc a status effect, there's a 24% chance to trigger another random status effect. And this is going to be important. You do need to go and remember this because that 24% is going to be quite vital going forwards. I wish it was a little bit higher. It's not, but it still works very, very well with the build. So from there onwards, I just want to make sure that glory itself can do a lot of damage, and I'm going to be taking it more towards the status kind of damage route. Now you can go for secondary innovate, or if you wanted to, and go for more of a critical route, but we're going to be going for a status spread and dotting, and I'm going to show you what I do with Jade as well to show how Encumber synergizes with some other stuff. So you will be using a damage mod. Now you do actually want to be using Hornet Strike. For those wondering, can I go ahead and use Galvanized Shot? The answer to this is no. The way that Galvanized Shot and Gun Condition Overload works within Warframe is that if you do an explosive, all explosives do not benefit from Galvanized Shot, so you actually don't get anything. If you put this mod in, you won't legitimately get any kind of damage increase whatsoever. All right, consider it is considered an explosive shot. This is the same as like Hildren's Balefire and so forth and so forth. So this is near enough my best in slot, and since it's an automatic, I can't run the semi-cannonade one either. So basically, in we go. From there onwards, a little bit of multi-shot. Can't go wrong with either of this one. This one's scaling multi-shot. I get more kills, I get more multi-shot, and this one's multi-shot with fire rate, which is exactly what I want to be doing. I want to be pumping out lots and lots of different shots. From there onwards, because I'm going to go in for a bit of an elemental setup, so I've got the combination of cold meets toxin, so therefore I've got viral, and I'm going to end that on heat, so I've got viral and heat on my build over there. I am going to be using the combination mod of radiation meets fire rate, so again, fire rate is going to work really, really well with the build. But radiation is going to be important to what I'm going to be doing. Not only am I going to be using it for a little bit of survivability to try and confuse enemies and make them attack each other, but on top of that, it's going to be working with my Archon Shards, so stay tuned for that as well. Now, because it's a projectile related shot, I do want to make sure I'm using lethal momentum to try and get my shots out a little bit quicker. And then finally, we're going to be using Pistol Elementalist. Now, Pistol Elementalist basically increases status damage. That basically means any element that deals status chance proc. So for example, if I hit someone with bleed, or if I hit someone with a slash, that's fine. But if I go and hit someone with a status chance slash, it creates a bleed tick, which then bleeds them over 6 seconds. Well, this basically just means that bleed does more damage over the 6 seconds. Same goes with heat, electric, toxin, blast, and gas, which works really well. This means that I'm going to end up, due to my fire rate and how often I'm proccing with my status and my probability on multi-shot, means that I'm going to see lots of different elements, which means we're going to get slash, heat, electric, toxin, blast, and gas. Sometimes I won't even see half of those because the enemies are way dead, which means the scaling for this actually works pretty well as well. If you're looking for more of a scaling build, go ahead and just keep clearing lots and lots and lots of ads. So I did go and talk about the probability. Let me go and talk about it one more time really quickly here. I only have 56% status. So for something like this, I've actually got two forms of probability. Number one is when I do go ahead and shoot the shot, yeah, now it's a 56% chance, you know, or like flipping a coin or whatever, just rolling the dice, did I go ahead and land and did it go ahead and proc an element? Then within the elements, it then goes ahead and choose one of these three elements to go ahead and then apply to the enemy, right? Well, because this is 56 and this is 24, this means this isn't guaranteed until I go ahead and land the 56 first. But because I'm running multi-shot, the way that multi-shot essentially works here is that each and every projectile, each and every like bullet or whatever that I'm doing has their own form of probability. As in, multi-shot basically adds extra kind of shots for free that doesn't cost you any extra ammo or anything else like that. So in this scenario here, if one bullet's being shot, there's a 56% chance, but if two bullets are being shot, both of them have their own 56% chance. Does that make sense? So then all I'm trying to do is guarantee that this is now proccing a little bit better. So I can be a little bit lower in status, but I'm definitely going to scale my multi-shot to make sure that I try and make up for that little bit of extra loss. But hey, it works. I can go ahead and shoot, and sometimes I'll see like 5 elements. So it works pretty well for me. Now over here on Jade, let's go and have a little look at her builds and what's going on here. As always, we start up on the left-hand side over here, the ability statistics. Roughly inside this order, this is what I would go for. I would go for strength because ideally all of these abilities I've got here are going to scale off strength. So more damage, bigger buffs, good stuff. Then I would go ahead and go for duration. Duration is going to be my quality of life timer here, because basically nearly all of these, besides from the fourth, is basically scaling off durational. But because the fourth is a drain per second, that also helps the drain per second not cost as much. And then finally from there onwards, I would go for efficiency and try and make sure that you can stay in your fourth for as long as possible. So however you can fix your efficiency is up to you, but I'm going to show you a few different ways in this build that is actually fixing my efficiency. And then finally we got range, and range is mostly for my third ability, Aphadamize, where if I hover this ability over an enemy, it's basically going to be reducing their defense per second, so their shields, their armor, all of that stuff is going to be going down. It's currently at 24%, but I can get mine to around 54 to 55%. So in 2 ticks of this happening, I'm fully removing whatever they've got on them, which is great. So I'm going to show you how that's done. So now that you've understood that, let's go and start things off. If you're new to Jade, you may not, well, I'm sure you would have noticed already, she does actually have 2 aura mods. Yes, this allows me to take 1 offensive, 1 defensive. I'm going to be running growing power because it says on weapon status effect. Now, think about my weapon for a second. How many statuses am I applying? Right, the point is I get 25% ability strength, okay? Basically, I'm gonna keep this up at all points, which is great because every time I go and cast a new ability now, we're off to a good start. The second one I'm gonna be running is Brief Respite. You'll see there's quite a lot of builds, especially in 2025 right now. Brief Respite is in a really good spot. It's just so easy to go and protect yourself with shield gating. So in case you don't want to go ahead and rely on just the damage reduction that this gives you, or the damage reduction that you want to go and throw things like aerodynamic, you can put this on, there's nothing wrong with it, but do go and keep in mind that it will unfortunately at some point fall off. Same goes with Aviator as well, but there's nothing wrong with it. You can go and do it. Plus the math for me, like educating you guys on like how it works there, is a headache of a education thing, so I'm not going to go ahead and do it because damage reduction is different on which enemy is hitting you, so it's not always going to be the same, right? This is iframes. All right, so as soon as I go ahead and get low, I'm going to go and cast my free again. Okay, I cast my free, it gives me shields back, and then I just reposition myself and then kill the enemy that was trying to kill me. So that's why this is so easy to proc because of Aphadamize. From there onwards, the Exiles mods, I'm going to be running preparation just straight in there. I want to make sure that I have 100% of my energy so that I'm good to go. I can cast all my ability cycle and just start running and gunning enemies down. So this for me is near enough the best in slot. Good thing is you don't really need the prime sure footed here, so you don't have to go and chuck that in. But if you are looking for another mod outside of preparation, you go and put things like power drift and give yourself some more strength. That also works pretty well. Now, because I'm running preparation, it means I'm filling out my max energy. This is where Archon Flow comes in, or if you want to, Prime Flow. Let me explain why I have Archon Flow over Prime Flow. I'm not going to lie to you, it's a very, very minimal reason. It does state here that enemies killed by cold abilities have a 10% chance to drop an energy orb and then a cooldown for 10 seconds. Now, first of all, I'm not going to lie to you, the stats on that is just pretty bad, right? But the main thing is that because Encumber is proccing, if I do happen to kill them and cold happened to be the reason that I killed them, I get an extra energy orb. Or I just go ahead and put that in there and I get nothing. But look, I've got so much capacity free, why not? Okay? Why not? That's the motto for this mod, because some people are like, oh my god, why are you running that? Why not? If it's free, take it. If it's not free, don't take it. Just use Prime Flow, okay? So I've got that. Now I want to make sure to go ahead and look after my ability efficiency. So let's explain that one. So I am using the Equilibrium. Equilibrium just basically means whenever I go and kill enemies, they drop a health orb. When I go and collect that health orb or vacuum it up, what's going to happen there is I'm also going to get some energy from that health orb, and vice versa. So this just works naturally quite well with high KPM builds where you're just killing lots of enemies, you're picking up lots of orbs, you're sustaining yourself. But I can also go ahead and help my efficiency just a little bit more. I'm going to be using Borrel's Hatred down here. Not only does it give me shield capacity, which works really well with her second ability. I noticed some text here that's cut out because my big face is in the way, but basically this one here says Spirit of Resilience, and it basically gives you shields per second and gives you a shield recharge delay. As you can imagine, that's going to work pretty well in terms of just helping us survive. So why not increase the maximum amount of store shields that I can get if I do need to survive? So if you're in a bad spot, or if you find yourself like, oh, do you know what, these enemies actually kind of hurting now, you can cycle towards Spirit of Resilience and use that as a protection tool for yourself and then get more out of it, which will then ultimately end up giving you more on your invulnerability up here, 2.2 seconds. If something tries to one-shot me and remove all of that shield off me, doesn't matter, I get more invulnerability scaling because I'm adding this in. Furthermore, another reason, ability efficiency. As I just said there as well, I'm going to be using Blind Rage, and Blind Rage gives me the most amount of strength, but also hurts my ability efficiency. So normally I pair these two together because they work really, really well, but I can also chuck this in because of the third reason that it does, which is, again, damage reduction when I'm airborne. The other sources of damage reduction that I've currently got is going to be damage reduction on Glory on high, 50% damage reduction there. I also have damage reduction on my shields, 50% right at the very top, innately within it, and other forms of damage reduction will be things like armor, protect, and health. Ideally, there's a few different forms of damage reduction here, but for the most part, I'm going to be using shield gain as my primary survival method. Well, actually, I'm just going to be killing enemies is what I'm going to be doing. So anyways, Boral's Hatred actually synergizes pretty well with Warframes like Jade and Hildred and Titania and so forth. So you can slot it in, can't really complain about it. So this and this stored into that, and then I've got Arcane Impetus. Now, Arcane Impetus is the reason why I told you to remember earlier from secondary Cucumber, right? If you remember that Arcane on the weapon, basically unique status effects from abilities, and keep in mind all of those Cucumber procs are considered my ability because it's on my Exalted Weapon, grant 6% ability strength and 3% ability efficiency for 20 seconds. Well, if I just do some quick math here, and I'll go and put it up on the screen. If I have 13 elements that I can proc, so that's impact / puncture, heat, cold, toxin, electric, and then corrosive blast, radiation, magnetic, viral, gas. Wow, I did all of that in one take. Normally I forget one. If I've got all of those elements, the idea is I basically take those and I multiply it, so that's 13 of them, and I multiply it by whatever values I've got in here. So this Arcane is actually giving me 78% strength, and it's also going to end up giving me 39% efficiency. I think I got those numbers right, but again, it'll be here on text. So I basically add that 39% efficiency over here, and as you can see, that would take me to 99% efficiency. I lost 1% efficiency. That's pretty good, right? But furthermore, I gained way more strength from this Arcane because of how Cucumber and Impetus synergize towards one another, so it's looking pretty crispy. So that covers my energy. Now, like I said, strength, and then I'm also using this as an offensive mod. So I already spoke about Archon Flow, but Archon Vitality, not only does it give me health, but it means that any status effects that are dealt from abilities that deal heat damage, which I naturally inherently have within my build, because that's why I popped in there, this is going to go ahead and apply heat procs twice. And again, I've got the Elementalist as well also going. Furthermore, if you want me to go one step further, I've also got Rhino's Roar on top of it. And Rhino's Roar basically just means any element that is doing dots in this scenario here is effectively dealing a dot again, because that's how faction and Roar works. So they're getting, so even if I just do just heat alone, I apply 2 heat procs. The heat procs still 0.9 times multiplier more, so 90% more on the mods, and then they also go ahead and dip into themselves twice, so they do more there as well, right? That's what's going on there. That's why I'm using Rhino's Roar to synergize with all of the abilities, all of the dots and procs and so forth I'm getting. The other thing that I've also got is Archon Continuity, and the main reason why I have this one is going to help me build up Impetus a little bit quicker. See, whenever I go ahead and do a toxin proc, I guarantee a corrosive, which is great. But you might be thinking, oh, that's really good. You can weaken them and you can go and armor strip them and so forth. Again, no, this is going to remove all of their defenses. So corrosive doesn't really become that important when they're going to have no armor. This fully removes armor. For those who do not know, when it comes towards things like corrosive procs versus like abilities and so forth that are corrosive, they are multiplicative to each other. Basically, I couldn't really, they don't go hand in hand. So if I used something that had 80% armor strip, like this is guaranteed armor strip at some point, it's just per second. So however many seconds I apply it for. But let's say that this had like 80% armor strip, and then I put on 10 stacks of corrosive procs. Does that mean I fully armor strip them? No, they're multiplicative. So actually, if anything, it's diminishing returns. Like I either take one or the other. Like don't take both there, since the corrosive procs also go to 80% as well. So anyways, that's basically what's going on. So the corrosive on here isn't actually doing much. It's just helping me build up Impetus a little bit quicker if I do go and proc the toxin. Again, why not? They are why not mods. If you've got room, check them in. If you don't have room, you don't need them. Just use Prime Continuity and use Prime Flow. Over here, you might be thinking, okay, well, why not Archon Stretch? Because I'm using a channeled ability. If it's channeling, it's draining energy per second. If it's draining energy per second, then I can't get energy per second back. That's not how it works. So therefore, this doesn't actually synergize with what I'm currently doing, although it would, because I could proc electric with what I'm doing. I don't actually get energy back from this mod unless I proc an electric proc whilst I'm in glory and I use my glory, then I switch out of glory, and then whilst I'm out of glory, maybe I hit like a nullifier bubble, or maybe I just wanted to leave it for whatever reason. I don't, but let's just say I left it, then so long as I use an electric proc, then this can give me a bit of energy back, but that's so not worth it, so don't chuck it in. It could be a why not, but honestly not. And Archon says so I'm not really using on this build, okay? So that's not what's going on. So hopefully I explained most of things what's going on there. Obviously Arcane Velocity is going to be giving me fire rate on critical hit, so that we can go ahead and fire really, really quickly. Now, as for the abilities themselves, just down here, I want to go and talk about them really, really fast. Just going to make sure you guys understand what's going on. When it comes towards her passive, basically, long story short, right down there, it basically is going to go ahead and give you a vulnerability. Right now, vulnerability as a whole is essentially going to be a multiplicative 0.5 towards whatever you're doing. All right, so 50% there, which is really, really good, or 1.5 respectively. You get the idea. Anyways, so that's going to be really, really good for extra damage. So naturally, I'm just getting extra damage. But in order for me to go ahead and get Light's Judgment, I need to go ahead and proc it on something. And I think there's a chance enemies inside Light Judgment radius also empower. There is a way that I can go ahead and get. I think it's my ult fire. I think it is. It's one of those. I can't believe I've forgotten this right now. I would have put it up on screen here, but anyways, I've just forgotten it. But regardless, I can go get some damage vulnerability. I think there's also a chance that I just proc it. No, there is. There's a judgment chance down there, 10% chance that when I do go and hit them, they get the symbol above their heads. And then when they have the symbol above their head, that means they're more susceptible to incoming damage. That's what I meant to go and say. All right, Edison me didn't need to cover for that. I just forgot. Sorry, forgive me. It's been a long day. So I'm going to be using Raw over Light Judgment, the actual ability, because again, Raw is going to work with all of that dipping that I've got going on from lots of different dots. Then on Symphony of Mercy, there's 3 different things you want here. You can actually use all 3 of them. I'm mostly using 2 of them. I use Power of 7, so I activate this first. And then I start activating everything else, because this gives me increased strength, which is good, and then everything else can get buffed off of that increased strength. So if you're going to go and start doing things like Rhino's Roar and whatnot, you'll get more if you can go ahead and remember to cycle to Power 7, buff yourself more, then go ahead and cast other abilities to get more out of other abilities, all right? Then the second thing I'll go and use is Deathbringer. Once I've done all my buffs, I switch over to Deathbringer, and now my glory does even more damage. And again, I think mine goes up to like 500% or something like that on this build that I'm going to show you. And then we also got a Phantomize over here. And again, just for the most part, it's going to remove enemy defenses. So you go ahead and just proc this, off you go. I also proc this for my Brief Respite. Pardon me. So if an enemy goes ahead and shoots me and removes my shields, I cast this, go get my shields back, all right? Because there's very little cast animation here, but I will go and cast it and like reposition myself and try and move out of the fray. Besides from that, it's just glory on high, and I'm mostly just using this for riding and gunning, and everything else will apply within the entire build. So now that I've covered all of those, I'm going to go and talk about the Archon Shards really quickly, because these Archon Shards are a little bit different than what I would normally go ahead and do. So I'm going to recommend that you guys go something different, but if you want to copy my style, go for it, because I'm going to explain why. First things first is casting speed. Casting speed is just going to be really good, mostly because whilst I'm airborne and whilst I'm just doing things, I don't want to spend a lot of time recasting things, whatever. The good thing is most of my abilities are scaling off ability duration, so this is not a spam heavy build. You don't need casting speed here, but it definitely feels good when you got things like Rhino's Roar, and when I'm trying to cast speed for Brief Respite and a Phantomize, right? So I just go and proc it a little bit quicker. So I like this here. You don't have to go and take it, but I think if you do take it, you'll see what I mean. The quality of life is just so good. This where it gets very interesting. So yes, I would recommend you would go things like Crimsons for ability strength. You go things like Crimsons for ability duration. Yeah, you can go whack those on. Now, anything that's secondary critical chance, don't take here. She's got very, very low critical chance. If I ran 4 Topaz Shards, then I would only end up getting, she has base 15%. I'd only end up getting 45% critical chance. It's not much that I get out of it. So don't run secondary critical chances on her. What you can go and do is you go and run these ones instead. It says you gain 10% ability damage on enemies that are affected by radiation status. You might understand why I've took the radiation mod now. Not only does it give me fire rate, but it also helps me proc the radiation status. If I proc the radiation status, I'm now increasing my ability damage, as in my glory is ability, right? So this is now going to go ahead and end up doing a bit more damage towards them, so long as I go and get that radiational proc on them. So again, it's for targets that I can't typically take down, like, or maybe I'm scaling and so forth. This just gives a bit more breathing room to the build. You don't have to run this because this is so specific to the setup that we're currently running, and so is this. Emerald Archon Shard. I recover 2 health every time enemies are damaged by a toxin status effect. So not only is toxin helping my prime continuity or my Archon continuity to go ahead and help with the corrosive, but it also means every time I apply a toxin, I'm also healing. This is also for in tile sets when you go ahead and hit those pesky little enemies that go ahead and do corrosive procs on, toxin procs on you. So if they're going proc toxin on you, you go and take a little bit of toxin dot, basically straight to your health. It'll bypass your shields. Well, during that time, I don't have to panic. I can sustain myself through that and heal myself back to full. It's just a little something. You don't have to go and take it. Most of the time I won't even notice it, but it's a good little backup shard, and I wanted to go and show you some other synergy that you can go ahead and do here with some shards. But hey, play around with the shards though, because with a build like this with Encumber, there's actually quite a few different things you can go ahead and do, which is really cool. Now, as for some other things really quickly, I'll go ahead and show you. Let me go ahead and put on the where is she, Jade? So other things that I am going to go ahead and use here, I'm going to go and use the Grimoire, and my goal to go ahead and use the Grimoire is going to use Vome Invocation. Vome Invocation is going to give me 60% ability strength, so I'm going to go ahead and shoot this out, alt fire it out, and as I alt fire it out, not only is it giving me 60% ability strength, it's also giving me 25% ability strength because of growing power over here. So I basically send it out, I'll get 85% ability strength, then from there, I go ahead and take Maduari Focus School, I sling dash into the ground, which gives me 40%. So now I've got 125% ability strength extra into my build so far right now, which is looking pretty crispy. Then when I've got those, the idea is I want to go and jump into my 4th ability, and then I want to go and start shooting. As I'm shooting, I'm proccing secondary Encumber. As I'm proccing secondary Encumber, I'm proccing Arcane Impetus. As I'm proccing Arcane Impetus, once I get the 13 stacks of the Arcane, I'm going to leave my 4th ability, and then I'm going to jump back into my 4th ability again with all of these passives activated, right? With all of these buffs activated, which is then going to give me a tremendous amount of extra damage onto the build, which is fantastic. From there onwards, since I'm airborne and since I can only be airborne, if you go ahead and use Okina Prime with its evolution 3 Swordsman's Clarity, this gives you 30% movement speeds, not parkour speeds, not sprint speeds, movement speeds. It is base movement speed, which means I go faster in my 4th with this equipped, which is great, right? Because I want to move a little bit quicker because, you know, I might be a little bit more vulnerable. Now that I have all of those, the last thing I'm going to show you up here really quickly is going to be my companion of choice. Now, since my companion, when you fly with her, you'll notice your companion kind of lingers behind you like this. So it's not really like on the forefront getting stuck in. Because it's doing that, I want to go and use Worm Prime. And the main reason why I want to go and use Worm Prime is to go ahead and put on Calculated Redirection over here to go and increase its shield, so it's 2,100, and then go and use Reinforced Bond over there. If the companion exceeds 1,200 max shields or over shields, then your fire rate is increased by 60%. I'm getting an extra 60% fire rate from this, on top of Velocity, on top of Lethal, on top of the Radiation mod. There's a lot of fire rate that's going to be happening, and I'm going to be whizzing my shots out like an absolute wizard right now. It's going to be great. But the second reason why I was going to take it is very interesting. Since Arcane Impetus is proccing loads and loads of different elements, if we go and read just the second kind of middle half of this, it says killing enemies with 3 or more unique status effects reduces companion ability cooldowns. Well, what is a companion ability? For those who don't know, it is precepts. Any precept mods that you've got in here, normally, not all of the time because there are things like this, but normally your precepts are considered your crowd dispersion, for example, is an ability from it. So, but basically, Worm has got something called Negate here, and if you go and read that, it says it prevents status effects from applying to its owner once every 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds? Right. This will shave off 3 seconds every time I kill an enemy. So if I protect myself from a status effect, right? So let's say they tried to proc a toxin proc on me. Boom, this negates the toxin proc. I kill 2 more enemies, like instant, like bang, bang, straight like that. This now refreshed. So they try and hit me with another toxin proc. Nope. Denied. So this works really, really well there. Furthermore, Guardian also works well. And again, it's a precept, but it says boost owner's shield by 100% when run out. This innately and inherently, I think it's got like a 10-second cooldown. It doesn't say that, but it has. So basically when my shield instantly drops, this boosts my shield straight to full again. So you can see how that works. And again, because it's got like a bit of a passive cooldown in it that you don't see, this can also shorten that cooldown, so I can get this to proc, my shields go down, I kill like 3 enemies like in a blink of an eye, and then this resets and it pops me up again. So it's like a bam 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 bam, like double shield gate, or like triple shield gate, or even quadra shield gate. It's pretty cool. Then I also got shield charger down here. I can't remember if this is still bugged or not, but this was bugged back like in the day that I was teaching it. So but anyways, this also gives you increased Warframe shields and shield regeneration as well. It's just nice going to have in there. Now you might be thinking, what about tenacious bonds? Basically headshot kills reduce companion recovery time of by 3 seconds, which isn't too bad, but I'm not really aiming for headshots on this one, so it's just good to be inclusive. But it does say if the companion's critical chance is over 50%, you get a 1.2 times critical damage multiplier. Now, for this build, I'm not using this, all right? I can use it if I go ahead and chuck something else on to make me consider using it. I don't actually know what my tenacious one is like normally over here, but I can go ahead and chuck it in. So there's my 50%, so I can go ahead and get the 1.2 times final damage critical multiplier. But if you look here, I don't actually have a way for this thing to attack either. This isn't attacking. I don't need it to attack, all right? That's not what I'm doing. I'm not using the what's the attack mod called? Assault mode. I'm not using assault mode. I just want this to go ahead and have this, and then this, and then this, and then it's like lots of defensiveness in the background. So with all of that being said, I'll just go ahead and give you, I'm sure you could skip to this part here in the video, so just a quick rundown of like how I would cycle this really quickly. So mouthful, forgive me, and then we get into some gameplay. So this is roughly what it would look like. This is roughly, okay? Because obviously I'm going a little bit quicker because of the video timing. So ideally what I'm going to go and do is send this out. When this hits onto enemies, it's going to go ahead and give me 60% Vome Invocation. Now that Vome Invocation is proccing, I also have growing power. It's also going to proc 25%. This is 85% ability strength. Now that I see that, I dash into the ground a couple of times and I go ahead and get sling strength. I've now got 125% ability strength. Now that I'm doing that, I'm going to go and use power of 7, where I've now scaled it even further, which is increasing my ability strength by an extra 115% onto my next cast, which is now probably going to end up being raw. My raw has now gone to 138%, but that's without Impetus. So what happens if I use Impetus now? Let's not use raw. So what I'm going to go and do now is jump straight, whoops, I'm going to go and jump straight into my 4th, and then I'm going to go and hit them as many different times as I can. And as of right now, I'm almost done. And I can just stop there, but my Impetus is currently a ×12 combo, right? So I've got this, I've got this, we've got the growing power, the power of 7, I've got all of these different buffs over there. Now what I want to go and do is look at my raw down here, 159%. It's going up, it's going up. You can see even Phantom Eyes is 53%. You can see how Glory on High is scaling as well. Symphony of Mercy, damage increase 533%. So now what I go and do is cast my raw, I then go into my Phantom Eyes, I go straight into this, they're straight armor stripped, and now I just go ahead and shoot them down like that. Get the idea? That's basically what's going on. There's a lot of like synergy that's going on in the background there. I'm just going to show you guys what something looked like here. You see this like little light sigil thing above their heads? That's damage vulnerability. So this person's taking 50% more damage from what I'm exactly doing. And this is going to allow me to go really quickly through tile sets and just absolutely become a run and gunner on Jade. All right, so hopefully that gives you guys the quickest rundown. Let's go and get some gameplay up on the screen here, and the gameplay is not going to last very long because there's not much to go ahead and really show. You get how it's all brought together now. But yeah, go run and gun. Just go ahead and remember all of these different buffs. Now, for what it's worth, if you don't have all of the buffs, don't panic. I get it. You know, it's cool when I go ahead and synergize all these different things, but most of the stuff is not overly needed. It just kind of helps what you're doing. You see, Glory itself doesn't do a tremendous amount of damage, so adding all of these different things together really actually solidify a very techie, mechanically inclined type build where everything's like juggling and bouncing off one another, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's mostly about it. Just keep your buffs going and off you go. I will go and say one thing really quickly though. When it comes towards the acolytes are your biggest nightmare. Really quickly, Torment will basically go ahead and use Highjoy's wave, which means he cleanses all of the status effects. And inherently with the acolytes, they don't typically take lots of status effects anyways, so it's going to be a little bit annoying here. He's going to be way annoying. Violence, if you get too close to him, thankfully you can fly, okay? So do not be next to an acolyte when it spawns. But if you get too close to Violence, he will literally go ahead and disable your fourth ability. This now makes you very, very vulnerable, okay? Try and get yourself out of dodge, go and use Brief Respite with your Phantomize, recast your Shield Gain, and then just get out and recast your stuff until you're back up. And the last one is Malice. Malice basically puts a magnetized bubble on you. Be careful when you're shooting Malice, okay? Because you might end up blowing yourself up. Anyways, I'm gonna bring you guys back here. That's basically it from today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please go and leave a like, share the video with a friend, and I will catch you guys again inside the next video. Oh, if you're new, subscribe. All right, I'll see you guys later. Bye everybody, take care, take it easy. Bye bye.